Pied Piper of Hamelin came to collect because the town refused to pay him for the rats. This story is structurally about a leader who took benefit of a service and refused to pay the cost, and the consequence arrives for his children. That is a metaphor for Sellafield and the British state. They wanted the bomb with Bevan's bloody Union Jack on it. The reasons that they gave on record for building Sellafield, for building Britain's own nuclear bomb, were financial and economic. That's a quote. That's the language on the page. It was not about deterrence or defence. It was financial and economic. And on paper, it says not to look bad in front of the Americans. The bomb solved none of those problems. Within 5 years of building the bomb that was going to rival the Americans, the UK had subordinated itself back to American warhawks. Anyway, now we have a situation where Trident missiles, the current British defence or deterrent gear, is rented from the Pentagon. The patents are American, the supercomputing is American, and the missile servicing is American. And British taxpayers are paying private American war manufacturers at least 10 billion a year to maintain all of this. And the British state has still not paid the piper. Now Sellafield is coming to collect. The buildings at Sellafield are leaking radioactive water into the ground. The plutonium stockpile, 140 tonnes, is the largest in the world, and it has nowhere to go. The British government's 1946 site selection brief had one recommended location. The government was told explicitly by senior civil servants that the only place on the island to even consider doing this kind of experimentation was here, Loch Morar, in the top northwest of Scotland. It's still not great. Scottish people live here. It's not your land to put nuclear energy on, but it was arguably a better option than in between Manchester and Liverpool. It was rejected because before it would become operational, it needed a water purification plant added, and that was going to delay the project by 2 years. The British government at the time rejected it. It said a 2-year delay was far too long and it could not wait. It's that choice that makes Sellafield so dangerous. In 1946, Christopher Hinton applied the US Manhattan Project population buffer criteria to Britain, and the criteria eliminated all of England and Wales. Britain knew damn well that there wasn't a single place in England that was safe for this, and they built it there anyway. This is a piece of AI art that I created that arguably is plagiarizing Quentin Blake quite directly. I owes him a credit. It is for me to make a point. Feel free to recreate it though. Shout out to the artists. I produced this because it was what I seen in my brain, and I don't paint. So it was produced for educational purposes only. It is not for reprint. I would love an artist to make a version of this that could be used again, but look at it. In the attic, we have the UN Security Council, and they are posturing to each other and they have their fingers on the button. But the consequence of this they are ignoring, and it's pooling at their feet, and it's leaking through the floor. And who has to deal with it? The doctor, who is not allowed to see what's upstairs, and the children with leukemia who did not ask to be born and do not understand why they're sick. The deterrent just means deal with it later. If the last 50 years of conflict have not confirmed to you that nuclear armament is not deterring war, but it is contaminating the water. In 1945, the cabal made a bet. The bet was if they build the bomb but defer the cleanup, that a future generation will have figured out what to do with all of this waste. They believed that by now, abundant, cheap, clean energy and a strong economy and the engineering capacity to deal with their waste would just be available to us. That bet was criminally insane on the day that it was made, and it is the internal logic that has been operating ever since. The government keeps kicking it out. Somebody else will deal with this problem. The problem is getting bigger. Nobody's dealing with it. They figured your children would just have the technology. What your children got instead is leukemia. That is the kind of deranged, short-term, risk-taking thinking that capitalism rewards. Sellafield was placed in the stupidest possible position. Not only is it between two cities, but it was put on a cliff that even in 1946 was already showing signs of coastal erosion. It now sits approximately 10 metres above the current sea level. Coastal erosion on the Cumbrian coast is documented at rates that are now accelerating with storm frequency and sea level rise. This site needs to deal with the waste that it already has and stop accepting other people's fuel. This site has no fucking business operating as a limited liability company, a commercial operation with profits billions, just taking spent fuel. One thing that we could do now, that everybody should do now, that we should have done 20 years ago, that will buy us more time to fix this place, is stop fucking burning carbon. Not slow it, stop it. The cleanup window is the climate stable window. Every additional day, week, month, year, and decade that we have been continuing to burn carbon, the window to deal with this shorter. That Magnox Wharf storage silo, which is leaking 2,100 litres of radioactive contaminated water into the ground every fucking day at Sellafield, needs to be kept above the water. This cleanup job is climate sensitive. These idiots are throwing around the words green energy as if that solves everything. The word green is being laundered by the same communications architecture that laundered the problem in the first place. When you think of green energy, you think of solar, wind, geothermal, tidal, even Tesla. Local resilience, not more toxic waste. Green energy things do not produce waste with a 24,000 year half-life. Green energy does not require the British state to manage $1 trillion propaganda machine just to uphold a fiction about what the population catchment of this contamination actually is. Here's the reality. Technology that scales by being installed on more roofs won't make somebody a billionaire. And if it's not being built as a £30 billion, chest-beating, prick-waving mega project for the government with state-backed loans and credit derivative structures that route risk back onto the public, then they're not interested. The conversion of the word green energy to include nuclear is laundering, rejected. The technology to save your life exists. The block is political. Children are getting leukemia because of the lie, not the absence of science. The science is free. The lie is profitable. They cannot be honest, so your children are paying.